We're in there. What's up? Miss Samnang.
What's up, Danny? How are you, man?
Doing
Um,
good.
yeah, man. I'm glad to catch up with you. It's been a minute. I didn't see you at the high school reunion, but uh, we were connected on Facebook just through the reunion and everything. And I saw he was into personal development, and I shot him a message and gave him a shout out and stuff. So that's why we're here doing this little video podcast.
Yeah, man. I was like one Zoom meeting and just kind of catching up from I don't think we've talked since high school. So it's like been 20 some odd years probably since you and I even communicated.
I don't even think we were friends in high school.
I know, right? It was like
I just knew
I knew
you.
of you. And like honestly, dude, I was just a little dick in high school and I ended up like spending the bulk of my time with grades younger than ours. So
Yeah. No, that's why I think the inspiration came from after the reunion. I was talking to a lot of like our classmates about how insecure we felt in high school and everything. And that's why I started putting out more content in the personal development field. I've always been into like personal development and working out and stuff. So it kind of just came more like, hey, I just wanted to do it more because it seems like we need a little bit more support in that. So that's why I've been putting out more content and you know just just doing free coaching for everybody or just trying to support. That's really what I'm doing.
well, it's funny, man, like, because I remember watching, like, because I was following everything with our high school reunion, right? Because I was like bummed that I couldn't go and like I wanted to go. And so
Yeah.
I was just like actively like following things. And then I started seeing your content. And it's just like probably the algorithm just kind of tripped because I haven't
Yeah.
seen your content at all until I started watching the like following the high school reunion stuff. And then I started seeing your content. I'm like, no way, man. Like, I've just been on my own little personal journey with my own little content, but like not that this is my career or anything. And I definitely vibe
No.
with like what you, and I was like, no way, man, he's fucking getting it. That's awesome. And then I saw you
Yes.
win that bodybuilder competition, getting second. I was like,
I got
damn, he's
second.
jacked.
I got second. I'll update you guys with that too as well too. So I'm in the cusp of being a professional. So I've gotten second like three times. And this time I decided, all right, we're gonna guarantee a win. So I hired one of the industry's like top coach that's produced like world champions. So I'm like, all right, we're not
Shit.
we're going to the top this time. And
That's
then
awesome.
I told him I want to work with him for a long time. So you know, I know it's exciting for me. I love bodybuilding. Some LB folks, I have a football shirt here. That's where I started my bodybuilding kind of like personal development journey. But everybody's kind of in that phase where they're trying to learn a little bit more about themselves. And I've done a lot of introspective work in these last couple of years, like 8 years, active like 8 years. So I've been actively bodybuilding for 8 years almost at the same time, where I started finding a little bit more purpose, started giving up a lot of things. And I think a lot of people are kind of in that area where they're in the gray area. They don't know um, what do it's time for uh, when you become become of age. I think that's how the old school head say it, right?
Well,
Becoming of age.
let's pull the thread on that and talk a little bit more about that. So you said you've been like actively bodybuilding for 8 years. So
Yeah.
let's rewind to 8 years ago. I mean, you've always been working out and staying
Yeah.
pretty fit since high school. So what switched for you as far
Uh
as how you
the
decided to
saying
start
the
to body?
saying it's very Zen. I'm very like Buddhist and stuff, but it's the saying is simple. It's like chop wood before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It's the same thing, but I just removed a lot of distractions. I wasn't going out drinking. I wasn't doing kickbacks. I wasn't going to watch football games. Everything was dedicated to bodybuilding, personal development, family, and everything. So that was that. And then I made another big breakthrough for myself. So that was it's like a level of consciousness that happens when you start to give up things. It's like a spiritual journey. Yeah, I've gotten
Yeah.
into a lot of like woo and like spiritual stuff, but I could also explain it like scientific. But so it's like open in consciousness. You're like, God. And then you're like, you want to go and read all the books. And I did. I've read like 300 books in like 8 years. Um, and then trauma hits, right? Screws up your brain. That's what happened to me. It screwed up my brain. I couldn't think straight, and the world felt like it was like crashing at a point. And I tell my story because my story is very, it went from up, down to like up. It's very crazy, but I had to keep it, use like a stoic mindset to kind of just guide myself through this thing. And now, I'm ready to like help coach and teach people about this, because that's what happens when you go through trauma, you go through a very dark time. And I've talked to a lot of people, it's like when you go through that dark time, and if somebody helps you, God, universe, whatever, you have a duty to serve your community. So it was such a compelling feeling for me to be like, oh, I went from the lowest low to like the darkest I ever been in my life. Uh, like talking to the therapist, having like a suicide plan. Like that's how dark it got. It never got that dark for me before, like Danny. It's like that's the kind of therapy that you have to do to bring yourself back up. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that type of therapy, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, no,
that shadow work.
that's real, man. And I think that there's a lot of folks like I went through a really dark place in my life before too, man. And I think there's something to be said because you just kind of feel stuck and like you almost feel like you're on the hamster wheel in those moments where
Yeah.
like no matter what you do or what you like, I guess, put into your conscious, you're just not breaking through any barriers and the same shit's happening.
Yeah.
You get like it's kind of wash, rinse, repeat, right? So I think that like A, being open and sharing that part of your journey and being vulnerable there, which is so critical for a lot of people when they're resonating with, any type of content, especially in your world and coaching, to be able to relate back to that. But then to have the success on the back end and be like, now look where I'm at, right? And
Yeah.
like, and then it's funny because I found it true in my life that as I started to progress, I could reflect back on those low moments. And I'm actually welcome that part of my journey. Like I wouldn't go back and avoid those dark places now because I know that that's what helped shape me into the man that I am today.
Yeah. Absolutely,
Right.
man. Yeah, that's the stuff that we tend to hide from. And I'm putting training videos together too, at my community. I'm giving out a free one too. So it's called a mental toughness e-course. It's gonna be badass. It's
Nice.
how to fuel a lot of that stuff, like the negative stuff that we look at, like failures, setbacks, relationships, like denied interviews and stuff. It's like, how do you take that, right, and use that as fuel? And then I got a good one that I made. I recorded it yesterday. It's called Pocket Full of Haters.
Nice. I love it.
I was like, oh yeah, people are gonna love this one. It's called Pocket Full of Haters. So the concept is, look, when you're ever anybody that's out there watching it, trying to get it, trying to take it to the next level, there's gonna be people that are gonna judge you, right? And those are the reason why we don't do shit, is because we're afraid of looking stupid with those people. That's real. That I felt that when I was like trying to separate and like grow. People were like, "Who is this guy? Why is he vlogging? Why is he on Instagram? Why is he live?" It's, you could tell when people are talking about it,
Oh
right? They're
yeah.
not blatantly coming up and telling you, "Yo, you suck" or anything, but you could tell. So that's what the pocket full of haters is, right? You if you have a lot of it, right? I was like, you have a lot of money, you have a lot of fuel, right? It's kind of like a David Goggins mentality where you take a lot of those haters and everything and switch it around to use it. Oh yeah, yeah. Just wait. Just wait till they see me. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Well, it's
just
funny, man. Like I kid about all the time in my space, like because in digital marketing, as we're growing accounts and we're growing audiences for folks, right? Our kind of like precipice is, and because it's always the business owners when we're doing our work always ends up coming back to us and like, we got a negative review. Like, what do we do? Or like someone's doing this. I'm like, you're making it, man. That's what that means. You're getting your first haters. That's you got to get haters. Like,
haters are good,
welcome the
man.
haters.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's yeah. It's really
as
just
I started to like even become more vocal, I mean, I started getting people reaching out to me directly and they're like, you should be doing this with your content. You should be doing this. And like all of a sudden, all these opinions come in. And it's because you're just vocal, right? And it's giving someone something for people to talk about. And some people are going to agree with it. Some people are not going to like it. Some people are going to be like, stop cursing, stop doing this, stop yelling at me. And then I went silent. And then I'm like, the same people are like, hey, we should come back and do more of that, right? Like it's funny.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast as you become vocal and on a digital platform, right?
Yeah, you just gotta stick to your guns. That's what I learned, you know.
Yep.
And then you just gotta
So
build big guns.
So to kind of like bring that full circle, we decided to hop on this, and just for those that are watching this, we decided like, hey, fuck it, we're just gonna figure out like, what if we just did a podcast, right, or something along
Yeah,
those
that was the
lines.
title. Figure the fuck out.
Figure it the
And I was
fuck
like,
out, right?
that's an
So
accounting term, FIFO. But I was
yeah,
like,
right.
that's a different FIFO.
Yeah, it's in hospitality too, right? Like first in, first out, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's accounting, I think.
Yeah, so it's funny. We last week, we met on like a Zoom. We were like, hey, just like catch up. And then this week we were gonna like connect and like, what should we like? We should do something. We're
We're
both
like,
like making a
let's
bunch of
just wing it.
content.
Let's just
Yeah,
figure it
fuck it.
out. Yeah.
Figure it the fuck out.
Yeah, that is typically how I do it too. Like anybody think that like I'm perfect. And you started hopping on Instagram and was like just recording. And that's kind of what I did too. I was like just recording. I might have said
Mhm.
something like like I'm not perfect at public speaking. I was watching my videos, my training videos. I was like, damn, I should have said that, should have said that. Could have beat myself up, but I was like, it's content and I'll fix it later.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll tell you, dude, like after you sent me that message through Facebook and you're like, hey, should we just fucking do this thing and record it? I was after you sent that, I
I
was
think
like,
you said that.
fuck yeah. I was like, yes. Yeah, you
Yeah.
sent it to me on through Facebook Messenger, and I was like, you were like, let's just record this and just
Yeah, that's
start,
how life is, man. I
dude.
think
And
people are too afraid right now. I don't know why.
yeah, and I was telling my buddies, I was like, yeah, I'm starting a podcast tomorrow, and I'm like, that's the way that I like to do shit is, and I'm a big fan. I say it all the time, like I like to create problems rather than try to solve all the problems before I even create them, right? So if you go out and you create the problem, I'm really good at solving it.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so we figure the fuck out. So we start the recording, and then here we are. So I think that that also is a perfect tie-in to this first episode of like when you think about coaching and I think about like what I've done in my business, right? Um, there is no time. Like I think there's so many times that we think to ourselves, like, I'm gonna get everything prepped up and I'm gonna have X amount of money in my business account before I start my own business. And I need to get all my ducks in a row and then I'm gonna start.
Yeah.
And the truth is that you just have to sometimes fucking start and then just continue to figure out because in entrepreneurship, it's just constantly solving problems. Like that's
Oh
all we
yeah.
do,
Yeah,
right?
that's the skill. That's the skill that you're trying to get is be able to solve problems, right? That reduces fear. So like when I started like really pushing to things, I did everything I could. I gave it, I sold real estate on the side, started shooting photos, started YouTubing, started learning graphic design. It was just all dedicated to this. And I figured it out. Right now, I'm like people think like it was overnight. Nah, it's like, nah, dude, it was like forever.
Yeah.
Nothing happens overnight.
No, I remember my first time I left snowboarding. I was snowboarding for 12 years and like coached all the way up to like the US team levels. And then
Yeah,
I left the snowboarding community, met my now wife, and we had trip plans to, make a family and we wanted to start traveling. So we bought an RV, moved into the RV, and I was like, okay, I need to learn digital marketing. So I got a job as like entry level sales. I was doing like 50 calls a day. I'm part of like a sales team of like 500 folks for they were selling like Google ads, right? Google ad management. And I did that for 6 months and then I realized like, okay, this is a good start and I got my foundation. I love that company. I actually still refer business back to that company, but I needed to do my own thing. And I'll never forget my first client I picked up. He was 70 years old and I just taught him how to edit videos. It was something I just knew how to do from my snowboarding world and like making little
yeah.
edits for the athletes. And he was paying me 25 bucks an hour, dude. And I was like, I fucking made it.
Yeah.
$25 an hour.
You created a social media agency, right?
Yeah, it was like I called it it was called market media, but basically we would do content library. So we would come in for businesses and do like 30 pieces of content, right? A long form video, a couple short forms, and then
Yeah.
22 images. And then here's like your month of content that you can share. So we started doing that, and then that bred it into like, okay, now we're gonna do web development stuff. So I started like getting some website clients, and same thing, like you're saying, like I was just kind of doing everything in marketing. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then I happened to be around a campfire and I just bumped into this guy and I was like, what do you do? He was like, oh, I own a defense contracting business. And he was like, what do you do? I was like, oh, I own a marketing business. And we started to talk and he was like, wait, can you take this marketing thing that you're doing and apply it to recruiting? And I was like, yeah, I could do that. So didn't know that, like, unbeknownst to me, he had just won over $1 billion in government contracts, his
Yeah.
business. He was a very well-off individual, and I didn't realize that at the time. So then I went in, I did like a board meeting. It was like all of a sudden I was like, and I had a great mentors. My brother-in-law was my mentor. And he was like, what are you going to charge? What's your hourly? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I was just charging $25 an hour, $50. I was like, maybe 65. Like that sounds good. And he was like, if you come in with that number, you're not going to get the job. So I went to Google and I started Googling like what my worth was, like what people are charging in that world. And I was like, $150 an hour. And I'll never forget me pitching that number to them and just feeling so nervous because I was like, am I really worth 150? And they're like, sold. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And
That's a good
then,
point, man. That's a good point. I want to share my insight on
yeah,
that too, because I was for coaching hours and like what I'm worth, and you gotta, because I was coaching somebody else how to negotiate their salary or their hourly rate or whatever as well too, and I was trying to figure out my hourly rate, and this is a big struggle because you got to serve the community, and then you also got to look at your experience and your time in it as well too, and I looked at it. I was like, I use therapists, I use coaches, uh I understand like how much money I need to make. Those are all factors that you got to kind of look at. Is like your lifestyle, how much you need to get paid, your experience, how much is going to serve the community, like fair it is in the market and everything. So I did a lot of time and a lot of research. I even got like business mentors to kind of coach me through that as well too. So it's like my thought process was like, okay, set the rate and then just create more value around it
100%.
for me. So I was like, I'm always good at creating a lot of value. I could talk it, or my reference or like my resume shows already, on my Instagram and my YouTube and stuff or whatever. It should support that. So it's a rate, and then if somebody feels like they got a lot of value for that hourly rate or whatever they're paying, that's gonna go a long way. Versus like I hate going to like a restaurant and paying like $25 for something that felt like should have cost like $12. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But if I paid $12 and I felt like I got something $25 worth, I like that $12 restaurant better, you know?
100%. A hundred
Yeah,
percent, man.
it's
And
value.
that's just it. And like it's funny because, after I pitched that, I looked at what they did with that. So it was a 3 month engagement, and then they applied those strategies and they grew that company from 100 individuals up to 1,000 and then exited for north of $1 billion, right? So seeing, and he even told me too, like a lot of their strategies was the stuff that I put into place. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, man, I should have charged more, I guess. Like, damn. So, I think it's interesting that value prop back, and I think you're 100% spot on. And I think a lot of us don't realize, especially when it comes to what is our hourly, and this is going to kind of play into what you do too, right?
Yeah.
Of understanding self-worth and like what it means to invest into yourself and what it means to deliver back that value and how do you do that. So that brings me to my kind of more recent time where rewind about 6 months ago, I went back into business for myself. I was in another low point, except this time, since I've been through low points, I was like, okay, I know what to do here. I just got to figure it the fuck out.
Hmm.
So I quit drinking. I started biking. I was actually 30 pounds heavier than what I am. I was like 180 pounds. I've always been like
Yeah, you told me that
155 since
story.
I
I
was
was
like,
like, whoa.
yeah, dude,
I'm glad you
there's
stopped
pictures.
drinking.
I'll have to find the pic. I mean, there's pictures, dude. It's like crazy how much more weight I had, but
Yeah.
So I started just to do that. Just my third son was being born, and it was like, you know what? My wife just went 9 months. We've had this talk of how I need to cut back on drinking. I'm like, fuck it. I'm gonna go 2 months sober, and I'm just gonna start working out in the morning. And that was the start of my personal growth journey. And I just started sharing on Instagram stories
Yeah.
every morning, just because it was like for me, it really like it wasn't. I didn't think I
Yeah.
was like it's funny. It was almost like my own personal record. Like I didn't care. I wasn't trying to be an influencer. I wasn't trying to like, like go amass an audience for myself. It was more like I fucking hate my life, and now I'm going to share it here because I fucking hate my life right now doing this, right? And it resonated with people. And then from
I
that
love
point
it.
on, I realized like, well, maybe I should put this into a reel because people were like sending my stuff and sending my stories. So this way it's like more shareable. And then I had some like really amazing things happen with people reaching out and friends that made major life changes, and they created a lot of it to the content I was doing. And that's when I realized like, okay, maybe this is what it means to invest into myself. Like
Mm,
focusing, because it was a lot of mental bandwidth to give up drinking. It was a lot of mental
mm,
bandwidth to get up at 5 a.m. It was a lot of mental bandwidth to work out. But the more that I worked on me, the more I could give back to my family, the more I could
yeah.
give back to my business, the more I could
Yeah.
give back to my community.
Hell yeah,
And
man.
all of a sudden it was like, huh, maybe this like personal growth stuff matters, right? And
Yeah.
so now I'm in this place where it's like, okay, I've done it. I know what I need to do, but I'm like any other human being. I still struggle with motivation. And for me,
Yeah.
this is where I would love to pick your brain because the thing that I'm struggling with today, right now,
Uh-huh.
like this morning, even for this, like I was like, okay, cool. I'm good with waking up at 5 a.m. I'll wake
Yeah.
up at 5. I'll get myself a cup of coffee and I'll just kind of sit and just like wake up for the day. But last night when I went to bed, I was like, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna work out before this. I'm gonna be all fucking pumped and swole. Like Samnang's on there, dude. I gotta like at least get a little puffy here, you know.
Puffy. That's a Hormozy.
Yeah, dude. If you
I
can't tell, I
love
follow
Hormozy.
his content.
I started watching some Hormozy content. I was like, yo, that dude's just like me.
Yeah, right, dude.
he,
He's for real.
he plays in a bigger league, but I just play in a smaller league. But it's like, yo, he's a bro like me. He likes business, he likes content and marketing, and he likes to lift weights. I was like, I like this guy.
He's a good dude to emulate and follow, man. But that's where I would like turn to you. So we talked last week a little bit about this like kind of spiritual thing, and I'm
Yeah,
not like a super spiritual person, I would say,
yeah,
like as far as religion's concerned, but I
yeah.
am spiritual in the sense that like I believe in energies and vibrations and things like that. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn it over to you as far as my current situation, which has been thinking very positively before I go to bed that I'm going to get out, work out the first thing in the morning. And then like I wake up and then I'm like deflated.
Yeah.
So how do you carry that energy over, right?
Yeah, I got you. That's a good question. And I have thought about that. I think you kind of I like to listen. Uh, but when you say like spirituality and stuff and like religion, I think there's a lot of confusion behind it. And I told my audience, or like I just kind of figured out I'm like a philosopher. I'm not a religious person, or like this perfect spiritual person. People ask me, I was like, so do you smoke weed? I was like, yeah, I smoke weed. So I'm like, not this like holy person, but like I could say I found enlightenment, right? And then when you find enlightenment, you realize everything is spiritual growth, right? The thing that you're doing right now, personal development. I was in the same exact spot. You can watch like an old YouTube video of me saying like, I know how to do this. I'm working on these goals and stuff, but I'm working on my spirituality. I don't know. I was just trying to figure it out, almost kind of like in the same thing. But then after making this big breakthrough, as like personal development, working out, business, working on your family, working something that actually like makes you your like self-actualize, personal development, spirituality is the exact same thing. The language is a little bit different, right? Spiritualists when I started listening to the spiritualists, more woo-woo stuff, like this is the same thing, right? That religion should be. Religion gets caught up in a lot of like politics. And this is like a personal opinion, I don't want to like trigger anybody, but religion and systems kind of build this thing called the matrix. Is like if you get so caught up in the matrix and the religion, the politics and everything, and forget to like self-actualize outside of this, you're not actually self-actualized. It's an illusion, right? When you make a breakthrough, you're like, oh, all this shit doesn't really matter. It matters here, right? If I want to change the universe, I change here. And it's really just comes down here in the heart, where there's gonna come like a lot of like pain sometimes.
Yeah.
Like for me, I went through a lot of pain. And then when I made that breakthrough, I was like, oh, I understand energy now. I understand how the heart works. I understand how the brain works, right? So now you're starting to be a little bit different. Some people have you broken out of the matrix, right? Some people don't want to get out of the matrix. Some people just want to be, stay in that worldview. The matrix is a different worldview. And then the next worldview is the quantum, right? Then you make into the spirituality realm where your thoughts transcend. The stuff that you say is wisdom, not just news. People are confusing news with like wisdom, information for like intelligence. So there's a lot of confusion, and that's just personal opinion, right? That's from me making boom, this big breakthrough. So that's kind of like your journey. It goes in phases, right? I don't want to say it, but like I'm a master where like I am connected to the what they call the collective unconscious. So we all have similar thought process. So when I'm talking, I'm resonating because I've thought your thoughts.
Yeah.
you know?
No, I think that's spot on, man. I definitely think that there's a lot to be said with that spiritual enlightenment. And it's interesting for me personally as the more I started to work on myself. I remember coming up to like my 2 month mark, right? And I'm like, okay, 2 months sober.
Yeah.
And I had the thought of like, okay, I can have a drink. Now I did my thing. And like I can start to do some of those old things and those old habits. Like I did my thing, right? I did it. Yay, go Danny. I did my goal. And then one of my clients he's been sober for 15 years and he started talking to me about like post-acute withdrawal syndrome and like all sorts of other things that come along with it. He's like, you should go 6 months. And I'm like, okay, I'll go 6 months. So then as I continued on that path, and that's when I biked like 30 miles a day and I like
Yeah.
went through this like whole big like I wonder how far I could push myself kind of thing. All of a sudden, my business went from doing fairly okay. It was me and one other guy. I had hired one other person at that point, and like I was able to start paying my bills and start paying my debt back because that's something that I incurred becoming, an entrepreneur. I went from like making like tens of thousands of dollars to I cracked my first $50,000 month,
Yeah.
right? And then I did it again. And then I did it again. And now we're like, holy shit, like I can give back so much more value. And now my
Yeah.
team's grown to 7 people. And I just had this talk with my folks today or yesterday as far as like, ramping up on like our company-wide meeting. The realization of like the more that I work on not just myself, but also my mind and what you're talking about, the more I'm able to give back and bring value back to the community, even in the like in the digital space, right? And being able to come up with like creative ideas and new campaigns and new ways of doing lead gen for folks. And then that part of it, like, I realized it's how do you it's all a value chain, right? And how you give value back. So the
Yeah.
more that I worked on me, the more that I realized the value that I could bring to myself and my immediate family, I that transcended to where now I could start to give more value back to the world. So I'm bought in on this spiritual
Yeah.
enlightenment journey that I'm going on. And
Cool, man.
that's like I feel like our conversations I'm excited for because that's the value I'm gonna get from doing this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's awesome, man. I love to hear that. Like when people light up, I could tell when I talk to people and coach people, it's more just like letting them say what they need to say and everything. And what I think I picked saw from there, one is alcohol. This is a big subject. It's an important subject. I actually talked about it on one of my Instagram stories, and a few people had some questions about it and stuff, like if I've been sober and what the opinion is on it. I've been I wasn't always a heavy drinker, more just like a light drinker, but regular drinker, like once or twice a week, at least. So it was like on a schedule, at least like once a week. So that at 30, I gave it up, started pursuing bodybuilding, and a lot of clarity comes in your brain. So what you're seeing is the productivity is not really, it's always been there, right? It's just that you're clearing up brain fog. Alcohol does cause a lot of brain fog. So once I started making more or eliminating the alcohol from the diet, literally what a lot of people do is have this brain fog. What takes people like 2 or 3 years to decide to do, when you don't have brain fog, it takes like one day to decide,
Yeah.
right? So like when people see that I'm like super productive and stuff, it's like, no, I don't have brain fog. I don't have shit in my
Yeah.
head. I
Yeah,
have
exactly.
I have decisions that I need, very important decisions to make and stuff, very strategic, like marketing decisions and like stuff that takes a lot of like brain power. I have to put a website together. I have to put a community together and stuff. I have to do training programs. Um, what takes people 3 or 4 years with no brain fog, it's like, I don't know, 80% better. So part of my coaching is like, hey, like you're missing out on a lot of stuff if you're not giving up these things. I think there's some folks that want to get in this space, but this is a big thing. If you really want to remove like weight off of your plate, off of your body, off of your mind, this is an easy way, right? Come hang out with us. You know what I'm saying? We'll have coffee and drink some pre-workouts before our podcast. Yeah, I had
Sick.
a pre-workout.
Nice, nice. But it's
But
so
it gets your brain fired. There's better ways to kind of fill your space. But my challenge for you as a coach, because a coach always challenges. Coach doesn't like the status quo, because the status quo results in no like plateaus. You said you did 2 months, and then your friend challenged you 6 year or 6 months, right?
right.
Okay. So after like we talked and everything, and like about personal development and spirituality, and like where I've gotten, let me ask you to commit. What's holding you back from committing for the rest of your life?
At this point, nothing. So it was I wanted to experiment and try it again. So I did. I had my
Yeah.
first couple drinks. And the funniest thing happened, man. Like drinks that I normally like I got an IPA from a brewery that
You didn't want
normally
it.
like I would love. Like normally I would be like, oh, it's just so good. I had a nice glass of red wine at like a really fancy Italian restaurant. And like normally I'd be like, this complements my meal so well. Both experiences, I was like, I literally tasted like poison to me. Like my palate's totally changed. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't, and it's not like I don't think it's a conscious thing where I'm like, oh, alcohol is the devil, so I'm not going to touch
yeah.
it. It's like I want this relationship where I can still enjoy in the ritual of it. So, anyways, like after that experience, I think for me, I'm not ruling alcohol out for the remainder of my life in the way of like I'm never going to have another drink, but I will commit to this, and I 100% agree with that, is that I will commit to this new relationship that I have where alcohol has zero priority in my life. And
Nice.
it's got no, like it used to be this reward system for me. You you were successful, like in my executive world, right? Like we closed a deal, bought a $250 bottle of bourbon and drank the whole bottle that night with my buddies, right? Like
Yeah,
it was this like I had it on this like pedestal, and that's something I'll never go back to because it just
yeah. Like
never gave
your
me
life didn't revolve around it, which is good.
right.
That's what the thought process is. Don't have your life revolve on alcohol. The gatherings and the around alcohol or like the space, because that social pressure changes you. It doesn't make you who you are. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're
Yep.
under the influence, it's like the brain fog's not there. It's like you're almost eliminating in the spiritual world, it's your brain is the connection to the spiritual world, you know. So it's
Right.
like, but
But no,
how we doing on time?
we're there. So I was gonna say we
Okay,
probably should wrap it up, but I will give you this on that. I will make that life commitment to you on
awesome.
this call that it will never be a priority in my life ever again.
You're gonna be on a good path, man.
That's
I
it,
can
dude.
guarantee. Yeah, we'll be
Well,
there to
look,
support each other.
I think this is a good first start, and like I said, we'll figure it the fuck out. I say we just keep it going
Yeah,
and we'll schedule the next one. And anybody that does watch this, we can always take suggestions on things we want to talk about. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think we don't really have a format. So
Can I put a
it's
plug
just
in before we head out?
do it.
All right. So February 1st, my school community is launching. It's called Peak Performance Academy. I'm the head coach there, and I'm giving away a free e-course. It's called a mental toughness e-course. It's like 7 to 8 uh, lessons or modules. They're short, easy to digest, good stories, a lot of shit talk. That's what I'm bringing to the personal development field. I don't think there's enough shit talk in the personal development field, but it's fun, part of the community and everything. So the regular price is 89, but we're doing it for the first 200 members because that's my goal for the first year is to keep it the price at 49. So that's going to be rolling out February 1st. It's going to be linked on my website, my Instagram. That's all I'm going to be promoting for now until we get to 200. And the the goal is like I'm in a mastermind with Hormozy, my bro. So it's like a competition, like gamification. I'm actually playing. So
Oh, you
once
signed
I
up for that school
it's
games that he
free.
did?
Like
Yeah.
if you want to build a community, if anybody else wants to build a community, let me know so I can refer you. And then from what he's saying and everything, understanding it's the communities are kind of what is gonna grow into and everything through like social network and the internet, but like communities. So that he's part owner now of the company. So that's
Well,
why he's offered the free master. It's basically a mastermind.
that's awesome, man. Well,
It's free.
definitely that's exciting. So you're going live in like 4 days, 3 days, two
Three
days.
days, yeah. And that'll
So So yeah, definitely get me the link. I'll share it on my socials
and
as
I'm a
well.
competitive dude, man. I'm gritty. I don't know
That's
if I'm
it.
gonna win, but I'm gritty.
That's it, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, check it out. I'll share it as well and definitely help promote you on that.
Okay.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Thanks, my friend.
All right. Hey, I'm
All
gonna
right. Thanks
stop
for
the
the support,
recording.
guys.
See you guys.